The Steam House, by Jules Verne. Translated by Agnes D. Kingston. Chapter 4. Deep in the Caves of Elora. It was but too true. The Mahratta prince, Dandopant, adopted son of Bahai Rao, Peshawar of Poona, known as Nana Sahib, and perhaps at this point the sole survivor of the leaders of the great insurrection, had dared to leave his inaccessible retreats amid the mountains of Nepal. Full of courage and audacity, accustomed to face danger, crafty and skilled in the art of baffling and eluding pursuit in every form, he had ventured forth into the provinces of the Deccan, animated by hatred intensified 100-fold since the terrible reprisals taken after the rebellion. Yes, Nana Sahib had sworn deadly hate to the possessors of India. Was he not the heir of Bahai Rao? And when the Peshawar died in 1851, had not the company refused to continue to pay to him his pension of 8 lakhs of rupees? This had been one of the causes of an enmity from which resulted the greater excesses. But what could Nana Sahib hope for now? The revolt had been completely quelled 8 years before. The Honourable East India Company had gradually been superseded by the English government, which now held the entire peninsula under an authority very much firmer and better established than that of the old mercantile associations. Not a trace of the mutiny remained, for the ranks of the native regiments had been wholly reorganized. Could the Nana dream of success in an attempt to foment a national movement among the lowest classes of Hindustan? We shall see. He was aware that his presence in the province of Aurungabad had been observed, that the governor and viceroy were informed of it, and that a price was set on his head. It was clear that precipitate flight was necessary, and that his place of refuge must be well concealed indeed if he hoped to baffle the search of the agents of the Anglo-Indian police. The Nana did not waste an hour of the night between the 6th and 7th of March. He perfectly knew the country, and resolved to gain Elora, 25 miles from Aurungabad, and there join one of his accomplices. The night was very dark. The would-be fakir, satisfied that no one was in pursuit, took his way towards a mausoleum, erected at some distance from the city, in honor of the Mohammedan Shah Sufi, a saint whose relics have a high medicinal reputation. All within the mausoleum priests and pilgrims slept profoundly, and the Nana passed on without being subjected to inconvenient questioning. Dark as it was, he soon discerned, 4 leagues further northward, the block of granite on which is reared the impregnable fortress of Dowlatabad. Rising abruptly from the plain to the height of 240 feet, its vast outline could be traced against the sky. But Nana Sahib, with a glance of hatred, turned his gaze away from the place, for one of his ancestors, an emperor of the Deccan, had wished to establish his capital at the base of this stronghold. It would indeed have been an impregnable position, well suited to be the central point of an insurrectionary movement in this part of India. Having traversed the plain, a region of more varied and broken ground succeeded. The undulations gave notice of mountains in the distance. But the Nana did not slacken his pace, though often making steep ascents. 25 miles, the distance that is between Elora and Aurungabad, had to be got over during the night. Nothing therefore induced him to make a halt, although an open caravansary lay near his path, and he passed a lonely and half-ruined bungalow among the hills, where he might have sought an hour's repose. When the sun rose, he was beyond the village of Ranza, which possesses the tomb of Aurangzeb, the most famous of Mongol emperors. At length he had reached the celebrated group of excavations which take their name from the little neighbouring village of Elora. The hills in which these caves, to the number of 30, have been hollowed out, is crescent-shaped. The monuments consist of 24 Buddhist monasteries, and some grottos of less importance. The basaltic quarry has been extensively worked by the hand of man. But the native architects, who from the earliest ages extracted stones from it, had not for their main object the erection of the marvellous buildings here and there to be seen on the surface of the vast peninsula. No, they removed these stones in order to procure space within the living rock, space to be converted into chittyas or viharas, as the case may be. Among these temples the most extraordinary is that of the Kailas. Let any one picture to himself an isolated block 120 feet in height by 600 in circumference. This block, with a bold audacity almost incredible, has been hewn out of the heart of the basaltic rock, and isolated in a space or court 360 feet long by 186 wide. The block, thus detached, has been cut and carved by these wondrous architects as a sculptor might carve a piece of ivory. On the outside they have scooped columns, fashioned pyramids, rounded cupolas, reserving masses of rock where needed to throw out bas-reliefs in which colossal elephants seem to sustain the entire edifice. Within they have hollowed a vast hall surrounded by recesses or chapels, the vaulted roof resting on the detached columns of the entire mass. In short, out of this monolith they have made a temple, not built in the ordinary sense of the word, a temple unique in the world, worthy to rival the most marvellous edifices of India, and which cannot even lose in comparison with the marvels of Egypt. This temple, now almost abandoned, has already been touched by the hand of time. In some parts it shows signs of decay. It is only 1,000 years old, but that which is early youth in the works of nature is already advanced age in those of men. The arrival of Nana Sahib at Elora was unobserved. He entered the caves, and glided into one of several deep cracks or crevasses which had opened in the basement, but were concealed behind the supporting elephants. This opening admitted him into a gloomy passage or drain which ran beneath the temple, terminating in a sort of crypt or vaulted reservoir, now dry and empty. Advancing a short way into the passage, the Nana uttered a peculiar whistle, to which a sound precisely similar immediately replied, and a light flashed through the darkness, proving that the answer was no mocking echo. Then an Indian appeared, carrying a small lantern. "Away with the light," said the Nana. "Dadu Pant," said the Indian, extinguishing the lamp, "is it thou thyself?" "My brother, it is I myself." "Art thou—" "Let me eat first," returned the Nana. "We will converse afterwards, but let both eating and speaking be in darkness. Take my hand and guide me." The Indian took his hand, and drew him into the crypt, and he assisted him to lie down on a heap of withered grass and leaves, where he himself had been sleeping when roused by the fakir's signal. The man, accustomed to move in the obscurity of this dismal retreat, soon produced food, consisting of bread, the flesh of fowls prepared in a way common in India, and a gourd containing half a pint of the strong spirit known as arrack, distilled from the sap of the cocoa-nut tree. The Nana ate and drank, but spoke never a word. He was faint and sinking through hunger and fatigue, and his whole vitality seemed concentrated in his eyes, which burned and flashed in the darkness like those of a tiger. The Indian remained motionless, waiting till the Nabob chose to speak. This man was Balu Rao, the brother of Nana Sahib. Balu Rao, a year older than Dadu Pant, resembled him physically, and might easily be mistaken for him. Morally the likeness was still more complete. In detestation of the English, in craft to form plots, and in cruelty to execute them, they were as one soul in two bodies. Throughout the rebellion these two brothers had kept together. After it was subdued, they shared together a refuge on the frontiers of Nepal, and now, united by the single aim of resuming the struggle, they were both ready for action. When the Nana had devoured the food set before him, he remained for some time leaning his head on his folded arms. Balu Rao kept silence, thinking he wished to sleep. But Dadu Pant raised his head suddenly, and grasping his brother's hand, said in a hollow voice, "I am denounced. There is a price set on my head. 2,000 lakhs promised to the man who delivers up Nana Sahib." "Thy head is worth more than that, Dadu Pant," cried Balu Rao. 2,000 lakhs is hardly enough even for mine. They would be fortunate if they got the two for 20,000 lakhs. "Yes," returned the Nana. "In 3 months, on the 23rd of June, will be the anniversary of the Battle of Plassey. Our prophets foretold that its 100th anniversary, in 1857, should witness the downfall of British rule and the emancipation of the children of the sun. 9 years more than the 100 have now all but passed, and India still lies crushed and trodden beneath the invader's heel. That effort which failed in 1857 might and ought to succeed 10 years afterwards, replied Balu Rao. In 1827, 37, and 47 there were risings in India. The fever of revolt has broken out every 10 years. Well, this year it will be cured by a bath of European blood. Let but Brahma be our stay, murmured the Nana, and then life for life. Woe to the leaders of our foe who yet survive. Lawrence is gone, Barnard, Hope, Napier, Hudson, Havelock, all are gone. But Campbell and Rose still live, and he whom above all I hate, that Colonel Monroe, whose ancestor was the first to blow armed men from the cannon's mouth, the man who with his own hand slew my friend the Rani of Jhansi. Let but that man fall into my power, and he shall see whether I have forgotten the horrors of Colonel Neil, the massacres of Secunderabad, the slaughter in the Begum's palace at Bareilly, Jhansi, Mora, the island of Hydaspes, and at Delhi. He shall discover that I have sworn his death as he did mine. Has he not left the army? Inquired Balu Rao. He would re-enter the service the moment any disturbances broke out, replied Nana Sahib. But even if our attempted rising were to fail, he should not escape, for I would stab him in his bungalow at Calcutta. So let it be. And now? Now the work must begin. This time it shall be a national movement. Let but the Hindus of towns, villages, and country places rise simultaneously, and very soon the sepoys will make common cause with them. I have traversed the centre and north of the Deccan. Everywhere I have found minds ripe for revolt. We have leaders ready to act in every town and straggling village. The Brahmins will fanaticize the people. Religion this time will carry along with us the votaries of Siva and Vishnu. At the appointed time, at the given signal, millions of natives will rise, and the royal army will be annihilated. And Dandu Pant? Exclaimed Balu Rao, seizing his brother's hand. Dandal Pant, continued the Nana, will not only be the Peshwar crowned in the hill fort of Bithwar. He will be the sovereign of the whole sacred land of Hindustan. Nana Sahib folded his arms. His abstracted look was that of a man whose mental eye is bent on the distant future, and he remained silent. Balu Rao was careful not to rouse him. He loved to see the workings of that fierce soul, burning as it were with a hidden fire, which he knew he could at any moment fan into a flame. The Nana could not have had an accomplice more devoted to his person, a counsellor more eager to urge him forward to attain his ends. He was to him, as has been said, a second self. After a silence of some duration, the Nana raised his head. His thoughts had returned to the present. "Where are our comrades?" "In the caverns at Ajunta, where they were appointed to wait for us." "And our horses?" "I left them a gunshot from this place, on the road between Elora and Boragami." "Is Kalagani with them?" "He is, my brother. They are rested, refreshed, and perfectly ready for us." "Then let us start. We must be at Ajunta before daybreak." "And after that what must be done? Has not this enforced flight disarranged our previous plans?" "No," replied Nana Sahib. "We must gain the heights of Sultpora, where every defile is known to me, and where I can assuredly defy the pursuit of the English bloodhounds of police. There we shall be in the territory of the Bhils and Gonds, who are faithful to our cause. There, in the midst of that mountainous region of the Vindhyas, where the standard of revolt may at any moment be raised, I shall await the favourable juncture." "Forward!" exclaimed Balu Rao, starting up, "and let those who want heads come and take them." "Yes, let them come," responded the Nana, grinding his teeth. "I am ready." Balu Rao instantly made his way along the narrow passage which led to this dismal cell beneath the temple. On reaching the secret opening behind the colossal elephant, he cautiously emerged, looked anxiously on all sides amid the shadowy gloom to ascertain that the coast was clear. Then advancing some 20 paces, and being satisfied that all was safe, he gave notice by a shrill whistle that the Nana might follow him. Shortly afterwards the two brothers had quitted this artificial valley, the length of which is half a league, and which, sometimes to a great height, and in several stories, is pierced by galleries, vaulted chambers, and excavations. The distance between Elora and Ajunta is 50 miles, but the Nana was no longer the fugitive of Aurungabad, travelling painfully on foot. 3 horses awaited him, as his brother had said, under the care of his faithful servant Kalagani. They were concealed in a thick forest about a mile from Elora, and the 3 men were speedily mounted and galloping in the direction of Ajunta. It was no strange thing to see a fakir on horseback. In point of fact, many of these impudent beggars demand alms from their seat in the saddle. Although the time of the year was not that at which pilgrimages are usually made, yet the Nana avoided passing near the Mohammedan mausoleum frequented as a bungalow by pilgrims, travellers, and sightseers of all nations who often flock thither attracted by the wonders of Elora, and pushed forward by a route as remote as possible from human habitations. He only halted occasionally to breathe the steeds, and to partake of the simple provisions which Kalagani carried at his saddle-bow. The ground was flat and level. In all directions stretched expanses of heath, crossed by massive ridges of dense jungle. But as they approached Ajunta, the country became more varied. The superb grottoes or caves of Ajunta, which rival those of Elora, and perhaps in general beauty surpass them, occupy the lower end of a small valley about half a mile from the town. Nana Sahib could reach them without passing through it, and therefore felt himself secure, although so near a place where the governor's proclamation was fixed to every building. 15 hours after quitting Elora, he and his 2 companions plunged into a narrow defile which led them into the celebrated valley where 27 temples, hewn in the rocky wall, looked down into the giddy depths beneath. It was night, superb though moonless, for the heavens glittered with starry constellations, when the Nanu, Balo Rao, and Kalagani approached their destination. Lofty trees and giant flowering plants stood out in strong relief against the sparkling sky. Not a breath stirred the air, not a leaf moved, not the faintest sound could be heard, save the dull murmur of a torrent which rolled in the depths of a ravine hundreds of feet below. This murmur grew on the ear, however, and became a hoarse roar as the riders advanced to the cataract of Satkund, where the water, torn by sharp projections of quartz and basalt, plunges over a fall of 50 fathoms. As the travellers passed the chasm, a cloud of liquid dust whirled and eddied over it, which moonlight would have tinted with soft rainbow hues. Here the defile made a sharp turn like an elbow, and the valley, in all its wealth of Buddhist architecture, lay before them. On the walls of these, temples, profusely adorned with columns, rose tracery, arabesques, and galleries, peopled by colossal forms of grotesque animals, hollowed out into cells formerly occupied by the priests, who were the guardians of these sacred abodes. The artist may admire the bright colours of frescoes which seem as though painted but yesterday, frescoes which represent royal ceremonies, religious processions, and battles exhibiting every weapon employed long before the Christian era in the great and glorious empire of India. To Nana Sahib all the secrets of these mysterious temples were well known. Already, more than once, he had, when closely pressed, sought refuge among them. The subterranean galleries connecting the temples, the narrow tunnels bored through solid walls of quartz, the winding passages crossing and recrossing in every direction, all the 1,000 ramifications of a labyrinth, the clue to which might be sought in vain by the most patient, were familiar to him. Even with no torch to illuminate their profound gloom, he was perfectly at home there. Like a man sure of what he was about, the Nana made straight for one of the excavations less important than the rest. The entrance to it was filled up by a curtain of foliage and a mass of huge stones piled up in some ancient landslip, and thickly overgrown by shrubs and creepers. The Nana gave notice of his presence at this concealed entrance simply by scraping his nail on a flat surface of stone. Instantly the heads of 2 or 3 natives appeared among the branches. Then 10, then 20 showed themselves, and then soon, creeping and winding out like serpents from beneath the stones, came a party of 40 well-armed men. "Forward!" said Nana Sahib. And seeking no explanation, ignorant of whither he led them, these faithful followers were ready to obey, and, if needful, lay down their lives for Dandupant. They were on foot, but could vie with the speed of any horse. The little party made its way across the defile which skirted the abyss, keeping in a northerly direction and rounding the shoulder of the hill. In an hour they reached the road to Kadesh, which finally leads to the passes of the Saltpura Mountains. At daybreak they passed near the line of railway running from Bombay to Allahabad above Nagpore. On a sudden the Calcutta Express dashed into sight, flinging masses of white vapour among the stately banyans, and startling with its shrieking whistle the wild inhabitants of the jungle. The Nana drew bridle, and stretching his hand towards the flying train, exclaimed in a strong, stern voice, "Speed on thy way, and tell the Viceroy of India that Nana Sahib lives. Tell him that this railroad, the accursed work of the invaders' hands, shall ere long be drenched in their blood." End of Chapter 4. Recording by Todd.